really good success the last couple weeks that I know these folks want to talk about with you. We have Carrie Tergin, the mayor of the city of Jefferson, and we also have Bob Gilbert with Bartlett and West. Carrie's been involved in this project for quite a long time and has kind of been the champion of getting it moving. And not since the 40 years ago when we started thinking about this, but at least 5 years ago, we had Carrie involved since she's been mayor. And then Bob Gilbert is the designer of the bridge, as well as a volunteer on the committee, and he's really put in a lot of volunteer hours in addition to the work as the bridge designer. So, Carrie, I'm going to ask you to start first, and if you want me to advance the slides as you go, I'll be glad to do that.
Okay, that sounds good. And thank you all for joining us. And Randy, despite your technical difficulties, don't worry, you're not going to be fired. So don't you worry about that.
Thank you.
And you've put a lot of years into the Bicentennial Bridge and getting us to the riverfront. So we appreciate your efforts and the efforts of the Chamber as a wonderful partner in this project that has been a really long time coming. So it's really exciting because the Bicentennial Bridge is official. This is officially happening. It's officially going to start. In fact, I have proof right here in the mayor's office that we literally just passed a bill and I just signed it. And I'm thankful to the city council for passing this bill to move forward with an agreement to build this bridge with our contractor, with Phillips Hardy. So super exciting that we have this here. So yay, very, very big deal. And it finally gives us a chance as a river city to connect to our river at the Capitol. So it's something we've wanted for so long. We have a beautiful river and we all know and enjoy the Norrin access and any chance we get to connect to it. But on the Capitol side of the river, we have this barrier of the railroad tracks. And we've been trying for years to get over it and under it. And how can we get to our river and enjoy it? And we'll talk a little bit about the bridge today. We'll talk about Adrian's Island and kind of, you all are familiar with that and you're familiar with it and you've heard about it, but it's almost like, does it exist? And yes, it really does. In fact, it does exist. You probably have seen all the trees right beyond the Capitol there as you look over at our river. And Adrian's Island is around 30 acres. So to put that in perspective, Memorial Park is 30 acres. So it is a substantial amount of land that's just right for a park. It starts at the Capitol and ends at the prison, so it's close to a mile long. And we just really appreciate everybody's dedication, really, that's gotten us here today. So, so thanks to the dedication of our volunteers that have been working towards this goal, and then especially all of our private donors that we have that have been working towards this project, and that's mainly been BJ DeLong, and then we've had also contributors large and small doing this, and then also our partners with our Parks and Rec Commission and the Parks Foundation. So we're going to go through these slides. I'm going to turn it over to Bob Gilbert, and Bob's going to run through these here. And I guess Randy, you can go ahead and advance it here, and Bob's going to tell you kind of where it's going to take off from the Capitol grounds. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob.
All right. Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, Randy. Hi, everyone. And very excited to be a part of the discussion today, and very excited about the news over the past few weeks. The project has had a lot of momentum, actually, because of volunteers, some on the call. I saw some of the names that are here, folks who've been a part of this project for many years, and a lot of good momentum related to fundraising had been occurring just right up until actually the pandemic started and things slowed down a little bit, but we're ready to kind of get that rolling again, and actually have had a recent announcement of a large corporation. I can't say yet who that is, but a large corporation who just recently agreed to a donation of $200,000 toward the bridge plus the bicentennial celebration. So we're thankful for some of that kind of restarting of the fundraising, and there's more to go, but the project's a go now as far as getting to construction. So the image on the screen there is kind of the one I want to start with, because many of you have been part of the community and seeing this project develop, over the years. The main span over the Union Pacific Railroad is what you see there. It's one long span. It's the longest of the bridge, and then in the kind of distance there actually is some of the Loman's Landing, and then the circular building there is the Senate Garage on the Capitol complex. So kind of give you some perspective. And the island, Adrian's Island, is basically that long tract of land that Carrie was just talking about there in the distance. The main span is a little bit different from what you may have seen in years past. So if it's been a while since you've heard about the project or seen much about the project, originally there were actually 4 kind of replica rail cars across this main span that were going to essentially interact with visitors to kind of tell some of the maybe historical perspective of the bicentennial of the state of Missouri. So rather than that, to basically bring the project to fit into the budget closer, as well as create a little bit more of an open feel to this. What you see there is really just an open air concept. And as we go through the slides here, you'll see some other images of how we can also continue to celebrate some of the bicentennial history along the path as well. I guess next slide there, Randy. I think the numbers are next. Just some stats here and some schedule information is coming. There we go. Okay. So the project bidding started here in April. I think it was May the 19th, I believe we received bids. So you get to see some of the numbers there. 3.75 million basically is what the low bid award is to Phillips Hardy. Phillips Hardy is a bridge contractor out of Columbia and Kansas City, and they were the low bidder. And now, as of just this Monday, I think it was, the City Council did final approval of that contract that Carrie just talked about signing. So they'll be getting started here shortly. So the month of June was basically the work of the contracting with the city, and July is our expected notice to proceed date. As far as activity, you may see just as a citizen, out and about around the island, you probably won't see very much for a little while. A lot of the work has to occur on the island itself, and so I've often, when I tell the story about the project, people kind of don't fully understand where the island is because it's hard to see from the city. Actually, some of the best, I guess, viewing possibilities you might have of the island are from there's a kind of a small viewing area right by the governor's mansion at the end of Madison Street. That's probably the best view you can see at this point. Obviously, from the Capitol, you can see it as well, but that's really just the beginning of the island because it extends a mile toward the east and a little bit south toward the state penitentiary site. So anyway, you may not see a lot of activity until probably this fall. And again, with a bridge being constructed, bridges typically you don't see much until the stuff up in the air is being built, and that actually happens last. So just a kind of heads up, work will start here in July and be really getting going probably this fall. We anticipate a substantial completion next year in August. By the way, August the 10th, I believe, is the actual bicentennial of the state of Missouri. And so statehood days are being planned right now for celebrations around the state capitol complex. And those dates right now are the 7th through the 9th. And hopefully we will have some components of the bridge and the site being a part of those bicentennial days. So a little bit there about schedule. And then final completion, as we wrap up a construction project this large, there's a lot of revegetation and other things that have to occur in a good planting season. So final completion is scheduled for October of next year. So roughly a year of primary construction and then some restoration next fall. Next slide there, Randy. By the way, anybody who has, I guess, questions, comments, I'm not sure how you guys usually facilitate these. There's probably it looks like some chat box information there. I may come back to that a little later, or someone can certainly stop me, Randy or
okay, yeah,
Carrie,
I'll
or
help
anybody.
you with that. Sure, absolutely.
Okay, thanks. This first view is actually from the Capitol side. So this is again kind of a rendering of what we think it could look like. Some of the, I'll call it the embellishments, or some of the more bicentennial and veterans memorial information that you see is still in fundraising mode. So those are not necessarily going to be happening, but we're just giving some renderings of what we think some of those could look like. And donors, of course, are encouraged to donate to some of those items as well. But in the background, up above those columns, is where the Veterans Memorial is. By the way, if you haven't been to the Capitol grounds in a while, there's been a lot of restoration that has occurred to the North Plaza, and that Veterans Plaza area, the fountains and so forth, are all operating again and looking really great. So this is just downhill from that. Essentially, that wall is what basically supports the Veterans Memorial. And then on the right in that picture is the Senate Garage. So the trail starts there kind of right near the flagpoles, if you know where those are, and then proceeds then towards the bridge. Randy, go ahead and maybe advance again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the same picture I showed before, but basically once you've come through the Veterans Memorial Senate Garage area, you're onto the bridge. So this is what the main span looks like. Some people may wonder why is there a top on it. It is a requirement of the Union Pacific Railroad to cover any kind of path over the top of the rail yards. And so what you see here is just some imagery of what could be. So we're not necessarily final on what this might look like, but you can get a feel for the concept of how we could celebrate bicentennial history of Missouri through exhibits. So these are basically steel or aluminum panels that essentially can be decorated, kind of act like a fence, but actually have something on it. So you can see the gold ribbon being the Missouri and Mississippi rivers, and then some famous Missourians on the slide there. I think you see Samuel Clemens, Maya Angelou, Harry Truman. Off to the right, I think I'm covering that with some video there, but I think that might be Omar Bradley. But anyway, keep going there, Randy. I think the other image maybe just shows a little bit different angle of the same thing. Just to again give us some perspective of what we can do, along the bridge. We're not planning that the entire bridge will be covered with this stuff, but we basically could stop and have some interactions with information along the way. Some people, have asked me a little bit about some of the individuals on here, and again, this is just a concept, so it doesn't mean we necessarily pick the people that are shown there. I often get asked. That's George Washington Carver on the left, and then the lady in the second from the left. I have to ask myself because one of our landscape architects developed this, and I didn't know who that was. That's Nellie Taylor Ross. She is the first governor ever in the United States of America. She was the governor of Wyoming in 1927, and she was born in St. Joseph, Missouri. So again, gives us the ability to tell stories about Missouri and about famous folks from our history. And again, just a little bit of tidbit of history there for you that I didn't know. I thought I may share with you. You want to keep going, Randy?
Sure.
The bridge itself is basically 12 feet wide. It is a pedestrian bicycle type path. However, there is ability for emergency type vehicles, maintenance vehicles for parks, et cetera, to be able to use it. There will be bollards set up over by the Senate Garage and Veterans Memorial to make it pedestrian only. Except when official use is being given to one of those folks. We do hope also that there are food trucks that we love to have for events in our community, and there's no official size of what a food truck is. By the way, I had to look that up, but there are many different sizes of food trucks, but this one will fit, I'll call it, a lot of normal size food trucks, and we hope to also be able to hold events out on the island here as it gets developed. As you can see, lots of different views there. Oh, so this is a good view of just the overall project. The Missouri State Capitol is down in the lower left, and you can see where the bridge takes off right between the Veterans Memorial and the Senate Garage. As Carrie mentioned a little bit ago, this is a 30-acre tract of land. It's about a mile in length. It is mostly wooded today. So if you were to go out there right now, it is very dense. Vegetation. Many people kind of think of it as, just a sandbar or just a wetland. It has wetlands on it. It has some sand on it, but the sand is really, more on the river edge, and most of it is wooded. And I want to kind of recognize here too and thank this project has been going on, like Randy said, 40 years. So that's from before I was around, but I think back just shortly before I was born, I believe it was the Adrian family. So you hear the word Adrian's Island, but the Adrian family had operated a sand operation on the river, some other, I think, commercial operations right there along the river, and had acquired this land and donated it to the city. So, the possibility of this ever becoming a park and something that Jeffersonians and Missourians can utilized was a vision from long ago that the Adrian family felt, the desire to give this to the city. So it's been a property that the city has held for all this time, and now, fortunately, because of donors like BJ DeLong and many others, some on the call here I've noticed also who have donated the project, make it a reality. This is again a rendering, a concept at this point of the park area. The bridge basically goes out and kind of lands on some of the highest ground out on the island, and you can see some trails, some kind of more event open area, lawn spaces, as well as some river viewing areas, and hopefully eventually, some focal points, sculptures, other things could be placed out there. But obviously we have to plan for anything out there has to be very, very passive and allowed to flood occasionally. As many of you may know, and some questions that come up about the project itself is it is along the Missouri River, and much like many state parks in Missouri, this will flood in severe events. I actually was out with the family this last weekend. We went down to Roaring River State Park in Southwest Missouri, and beautiful place. I hadn't been there before, but just like Roaring River, many parks are placed along our natural resources that are subject to flooding. I will note, 2019 was obviously a pretty bad year on the Missouri River throughout the Midwest, but many people kind of think about the Missouri as something that flashes, or this park would be subject to that. But we do want to kind of remind you, the Missouri River, for it to have a major event, it's a continental kind of event. I mean, last year was a big year for the Missouri River because of snowpack and major rainfall in the Dakotas that basically surged, all the lakes upstream of us and so on. So again, when maybe Jefferson City has a lot of rainfall, Wares Creek, it will flash flood, let's say, and affect parklands and other things, whereas the Missouri takes more of a kind of a Midwestern event. Of a larger proportion, and obviously we have time to react to that, just like we did last year.
Hey, Bob, there is, and I think you probably saw this. There's
I haven't.
A gentleman, Jeff Teeter, asked about what kind of flood precautions we're going to take for the project, and I think you just started talking a little bit about that. So.
Yeah, as far as I guess flood precautions, the best one is just to realize it's going to happen, and so make things passive. In that, for instance, the bridge itself is drilled shaft all the way down to rock, riprap or large rock around some of the earth and fill areas where I'll call it on the attack side of the river. For instance, Jeff, that abutment is going to be protected with riprap. But as it relates to like park amenities and improvements, those are still to be developed. But for instance, a shelter house, let's say, just to get some shade, for maybe a family, picnic or something like that. Those would likely be, I'll call it four stilts, holding up a shelter, but no walls, nothing that's going to be, able to be damaged through a flood event. So again, it doesn't take a lot to kind of think about what you can do to protect against those things, but the obvious point I think I'd make is we have to consider eventually there'll be water around things that we place out there, so we have to be kind of limited in what we put out there to some degree, but also just look at the elevation that it's placed at and what kind of protection it has from I'll call it the upstream attack angle.
Thank you, Bob.
Hopefully that answered that. Yeah, I'm not seeing the chat boxes. Okay. I guess I need to probably turn that on or something. I don't use Zoom very often, but
I can help you with
some other formats. Yeah. If you want to help me, just sure. Go ahead and jump in and ask if you don't mind, Randy. And I'm trying to pay attention to the slides and what I should say. I think that's probably it on this slide. Well, right in the center, that is the governor's mansion, kind of center just below the railroad. And then what's not seen on the slide, but Carrie mentioned it, is the MSP, the Missouri State Penitentiary site, which has a lot of really great news going on with it as well, with a developer selection recently. That's at the east end of the island. So off the page here, you'd start seeing where the island kind of starts to trim down in its width again, is where the MSP site shows. And eventually we would like to, we have some conceptual plans of what a bridge connection over to the MSP would look like as well. So if you can kind of imagine someone visiting the community, let's say from the Katy Trail, now they have a full experience destination from the Katy Trail across the Missouri River Bridge, along the Greenway to the Capitol, to Adrian's Island, to the MSP. They could do all those things in one, in one experience. So I think we've got some really great tourism possibilities going forward as well. All right, the next slide. This is just a conceptual park setting kind of along the riverfront. So we're down on Adrian's Island in this photo. And like I said, it's a forest now. So there is a plan here to clear some of that out to help with, again, views, experience out on the island. This just shows some trails and vegetation. I might also say I'm hopeful this will happen, but still kind of in conceptual mode right now. But we also have been in contact with Missouri State Office of Administration. In the background, obviously you see the Capitol building, and it's just gone through and is wrapping up a major renovation. And there are remnants actually from the Capitol renovation, and we are hoping to get some pieces of that and actually kind of use that within the island experience, so that kind of imagine kids and others just walking along the trail might be able to see pieces and parts of the Capitol, maybe even share some experiences with kids like, hey, can you find this piece on the Capitol, because it's been replaced is what's happened. So we're hoping to utilize some of those components moving forward in the park planning as well. I think that may be it, Randy. The next slide might be the video. I assume you'll go ahead and start that. I think there's a little bit of music with it, but I don't think there's any narration, so I don't know if you'll even hear me over the music. But yeah, I can barely hear the music, so I might narrate a little bit. But tell me if that's annoying, Randy. But obviously, we're flying over here, and you can see the Veterans Memorial colonnade there. This is from an aerial image, so we don't have the full rendering of the Veterans Memorial, but that's what's happening right on the left there. And then the flagpole and the cannon is there today. And actually there are some improvements right around the Veterans Memorial area. It's difficult to probably share what's new and what's old, but that platform where those two people are standing, that actually is part of this project. And so it helps to kind of complete complete the finish, I'll call it, of this area. Right now, there's just rock, kind of landscape rock, just within that entire area where that person's running at this point. But you can see where the flagpoles are, and a connection on foot can be made to the Veterans Memorial area. So this has some night elements on it as well, showing some of the lighting. But here pretty soon, I think the camera here will kind of turn around and start heading down the path. In the background, you can see the obelisks there. Those are all, of course, part of the Veterans Memorial as it exists today. All right, did we start over? No, okay. So this is
it's coming down.
This is going to be the video of kind of walking out along the path itself, and again, you kind of get a little bit of experience of what that kind of open air, covered, fenced-in area looks like. We just have the one conceptual rendering that you've seen here a little bit ago, but you kind of imagine that's about a 210-foot span. So across 210 feet, I mean, we may have somewhere around 6, 7 different maybe experiences like that. Hopefully, it kind of depends on more fundraising that will continue. The basic project that's being built is, I'll call it it's the basic bridge, all the components to be able to get there, and some of the enhancements we can hopefully see over time. Oh yeah, so this rendering has some of the those pillars are actually some pillars that currently are available. They're from the Capitol. They're actually from the very top. Randy, you know what that's called? It's not a turret, but it's I forgot the name of it. There's a name of the thing at the very top of the Capitol, but those columns actually.
I call it the lantern.
Lantern.
The lantern. Thank you. Yeah. So the lantern actually has had all its columns replaced, and so we're hoping we can use some of those components out there in the park. All All right, I think that concludes the main presentation part. Randy, I don't know if there's been any more questions or conversations.
Questions about, maybe Carrie can address a little bit about the funding, of the project that the council approved the other night.
I will dig into that a little bit too, and also appreciate Bob with this presentation. He's done this a lot and really put this together for us and done a lot of extra work for us to do this. So, and I want to give a big thank you to everybody who's been a part of this project. It is certainly something that's been a big team effort, and it really started with the Adrian family and their desire to get this into something that the entire community could enjoy. And then our committee members, some of you are on the call. Thank you to our committee. This committee has met for years. In fact, several years we've been meeting every week. Once a week we're together brainstorming and working on fundraising and the concept and all of this. So it's been a lot of time from a lot of people in the community. And then speaking a little bit of funding, I also wanted to thank the fact that years ago there was a foundation, the Deborah Cooper Foundation. There were people in our community that really saw the vision of this years ago and put money aside for it. And so now that money will be able to spend, and this is coming to fruition. People like Sam Cook and of course BJ DeLong when it came to our fundraising. But I also want to thank the legislators that conveyed the land to us at the Capitol, because that is state property, and they gave that to the city for the entry point onto the island. So everybody who's worked on it, from all the former mayors and the Capitol Commission, legislators, and everybody in our committee members. But and then that brings us to the fundraising. And like was mentioned earlier, like Bob said, we just received a major gift of the $200,000 gift, and we're extremely excited about that. So we're still accepting gifts, large and small. We are set up through the Parks and Rec Foundation, so these gifts are tax deductible no matter how large or small. And then we still, I guess, in the ballpark, and I know this kind of changes and it's a little bit fluid, but our goal, in order to get what you're seeing there without the extra pictures and those things, because those can be added in later, but I think we're still looking at about 300,000 now that we have the 200,000 gift. We were looking at about 500,000. We received the 2. We still need 300,000. And as we continue to fundraise, there's 2 things. We signed the contract for the bridge, and then we're working on, then the park will be the next piece of that, and we would like them to be done kind of alongside. So once the bridge is done, we'll have a park to go to. Let's see, other things we're fundraising for. Some of those larger panels could be purchased by corporations and could be highlighted with history. So there's a lot of flexibility too. If there's a company or corporation that has an interest, for example, we've already committed to doing something to honor veterans in the area that you walk in. We have a community donor that veterans is very important to them. So they've invested in that piece and donated towards that. You know, we'll have a landing on the park itself. So there's opportunities for people to donate and still have a part of this entire project. Another thing that we passed on Monday night at the council level was, as we sign the contract, we need all the funding in place. So you might ask, well, how can we sign a contract when we're still actively fundraising? And so what we did was we were able to utilize funds that have been set aside for the park maintenance, for example. And the maintenance funds come from prior years. So sales tax B, when it was originally passed back in the 80s, when the voters of Jefferson City really had a desire and had put that out there and utilized that, the money that has been raised from that, we're putting towards the park maintenance, which should give us like 30 years of parks maintenance. So we're using the maintenance funds to assist if needed as we're continuing to fundraise, and then we'll replenish that. But again, I feel like the fundraising now is picking up momentum, and now that we have signed this contract, that people see that it actually is going to happen. It's not just something we're talking about, and as it gets built, there will be a lot of interest. And being bicentennial theme, we're also reaching out beyond Jefferson City. So if anyone has contacts with companies around the state, we welcome that. We'll make presentations. We will travel to them or virtually. And like I said, any gift, large and small. I've even put out a $5,000 challenge to other elected officials to match a $5,000 gift. And, you know, if 5 of us give 5,000, there's 25,000. But we also know that the big corporate gifts will also really make a big difference in this. So Randy and Bob, any more on the fundraising?
Carrie, great job on that discussion. People have been a little bit confused about it, but yeah, you're exactly right. In other words, we're using those monies that were set aside for future maintenance to get the project started, and then the committee will continue to raise money to complete the bridge. We think there will be more donors interested in this as the project becomes reality. We had a couple big donors that gave us a substantial amount of money, not Mrs. DeLong, but others. And they were going to do a couple payments, one the first year and then one the second year. And I had a comment from one of them. They said, well, I guess we need to pay you the second year. We were holding off thinking that this might not become a reality. So, that's great news. Again, I don't doubt their skepticism because it obviously has been a long time. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about quickly is Jeff's comment about the flooding. His comment was it would be a shame to spend this money and then I'd get it destroyed by a flood. The entire bridge structure itself, all the way down to the first landing, is above the level of, I don't know, Bob, is it 500-year floodplain?
The 100-year
floodplain. Okay. And so, and that structure is also flood-proof. So even with a flood that gets up above that, and maybe attaches to the lower part of the bridge, is not going to do any damage to the structure itself. The structure itself is completely flood-proof. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess the particular comment there, I read Jeff's comment as Carrie was discussing it. As far as maintenance goes out on land, what's going to happen is kind of like lots of our greenway paths. For instance, I sometimes use the one down by Edgewood and Frog Hollow, that area. So when flash floods occur, Parks Maintenance comes out and basically has to get a skid loader out, clear paths and stuff like that with mud and other things that do occur. So that's going to happen, and that kind of maintenance is going to be needed. But again, those kinds of maintenance activities are not what I call destruction. They're cleanup type maintenance activities. So that's what we'd envision on that.
Good. Hey,
Also,
go ahead, Carrie.
With the active fundraising we're doing, we've had gifts anywhere literally from $5 to $5,000 to over $500,000. So we have everything in between. So I've been asked before, are people going to be able to buy bricks and pavers and those kind of things? And I would say basically yes to everything. We're still in the phase where we're working through, what kind of either plaque recognition with names or how that will work and how we're going to do that, the donor recognition. But keep it in mind, so if you are part of a group and you're thinking of a project that would have a lasting influence on Jefferson City, I mean, how many times can you think of something at the Capitol that you could have your name on? It's extremely rare, and something as visible that not only we are going to enjoy, but anyone that comes to visit our Capitol. So there's a lot of opportunities. And if anybody wants to think about even just a pledge of something they may like to give, like Randy said, if people want to make a commitment and think about what that could be, we're willing to do that. So we're very excited at the momentum it's picking up. And a lot of our donors are, now that the contract is signed, they're will reach back out because some were ready to do a check presentation, and then COVID happened. We literally had some of those on our calendar to do some check presentations to start to get the word out a little bit more about the final fundraising stretch that we're in. So we're going to resume that, I'm sure, here very shortly. So you'll start seeing that out in the news a little more.
Great.
Yeah, I might comment a little bit on that. Randy, you were mentioning earlier, maybe the confidence level of those that might give to the project. Once it gets again into a construction contract, I do think there's kind of more reality setting in that this is really happening, and folks can be a part of it. I do want to mention, I guess, this has been a labor of love for a lot of people, many of which are on the call, and there are a lot of different entities and stakeholders here. So, for instance, when Carrie was talking about recognition or plaques, let's say, let's not forget too, we also are working with the state OA and the Veterans Commission and the Capitol Commission, because they govern the grounds there, and so obviously they want it to look all like it's the same stuff, so it's all kind of blends together. So that's partly why some of our donor recognition details, things like that, are still being worked out because we want it to all kind of jive and look cohesive with the Capitol complex. But the partners on this and some of the hurdles that we've had to jump have been pretty major over the last 5 years, and again, many folks involved here. I want to kind of give some thanks out here to the city staff who have been a part of it, especially the last year or so, as we've gone to a public bid process where they're managing the project, and Ameren, there are power poles need to be relocated here. The OA, like I said, the state of Missouri, the Union Pacific Railroad. I could go on and on probably here and just name all the different entities that have been involved, but this is a very complex project, and very much a project of coordination being a major issue, and for it to all come together and finally be happening is, I call it's a major success for our community, and very excited that we're here.
And I have to say, until you go down there on the island, and I know there's very few of us that have actually been on it, the council's been on there and Parks Commission, and a few of you have been there. I've been on there twice. You can go by boat or you have to get permission to go over the tracks, and it's hard to do. It's difficult to get there, but once you get on Adrian's Island, your outlook and perspective of the capital city will change. I mean, forever. Like, there is nowhere in our city that is this cool, that has a view of the river. I mean, to get up close to it and you turn around and there's the trains going by, and they're almost like you're looking up at the trains, the perspective, the capital, the beauty of our capital city, this amazing park that we're going to have. It is so special of a place that once you go there, you cannot wait to bring your friends, bring your families. You want to go back. It is a place that is so unique and special. I can't put it into words until you go down there and experience it for yourself. And the fact that we are soon going to be able to experience that in about a year is overwhelming and exciting. So I can't wait to take all of you there. We're going to have a chamber coffee on the island one of these days, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Missy can make that happen. Missy and Kelsey can make that happen.
We're on it, Carrie.
One of the things that we ought to do, the smaller committee that started on this years ago was Carrie, Bob, Jim Crabtree, Louis Landwehr, Diane Gillespie, and myself, and I'm probably missing someone. Anyway, that group, they probably ought to author a book about the process and how this last 10 years of struggle, but it just seems like there was everything trying to get in the way of this project. People don't realize what Bartlett and West have gone through with the railroad and with all of the environmental permitting and everything else. I mean, it is very, very difficult to get the Union Pacific Railroad to approve a permit to cross those tracks. And so, I mean, it has been a huge struggle. But there has been some, I would have to say that the committee, the mayor, Bob, Louis Landwehr, Jim Crabtree, Diane Gillespie, that they did not give up on this. And at any point in time, we probably could have given up and just said, BJ, why don't you give your money to something else? But everybody kind of hung in there, and I think we're going to reap the benefit of that. So thanks to all of that group.
Great comments, Randy. And I see an interesting question here. What type of wildlife is on the island? So we have worked a bit with DNR. We've been talking with them about it, and the opportunity for education. We already know every fourth grader, I believe, in the state of Missouri comes to the Capitol every year. So imagine them now being able to get on the island and see the kind of natural habitat that's there. So we want to feature the grow native, what's there on the island, the wildlife and habitat. It's interesting because I have a leaf, and I know Cindy Schneiders is probably thinking why I didn't bring it with me, but it is like this big, it's huge. It's this leaf off of a tree, and I took it with me off the island, and I still have it because I show people the huge trees and the wildlife and the habitat that we have there. But we are working with DNR, and Bob, I don't know if you have anything to add on the wildlife question, but it's something we want to utilize and highlight.
Yeah,
Bob,
go ahead,
but
Randy.
what, Bob, didn't we, and I kind of hesitate to raise this, but down at the end of the island, we discovered a bald eagle
Yeah,
nest.
that's what I was going to
And,
bring up. Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
so
There's
that's
a
pretty
bald
cool.
eagle nest. Again, it maybe not there. Who knows exactly? I haven't been out there recently, but it's actually more toward the kind of eastern end of the island and outside of any of the construction activity. But we did have to identify where that was, and of course avoid or mitigate that. But it's well beyond any construction limits. But yeah, bald eagle nest out there. There also is again there's some pretty good biodiversity there because again, there are some areas of wetland. In that image, you saw the park kind of up against the tracks. There's basically a culvert that goes under the tracks and then kind of feeds essentially like a little stream or a channel, and it's more of a wetland type channel. So there's a lot of different, I wouldn't call it upland type environments because it is a lowland area, but some of the higher elevations on the island have major trees on it. Again, these trees have been there for like 40 years, folks. So I don't, a lot of people don't think about there being a forest, but I mean, I can't get my hands around or my arms all the way around some of the trees out there. They're so big. So again, a good variety of habitat out there. So I'd have to ask a biologist to comment more, but I do know about the bald eagle.
Hey, Carrie,
Nest.
do you want to recognize some of the members? And I see Cindy Schneiders for one, people that joined the committee in the last year to really work on the fundraising. And I'm not sure I can remember them all. Larry Cobb, Cindy Schneiders.
Sharon Knott.
Yeah,
Sharon
right,
Knott.
right. Sharon
Ken
Knott,
Theroff.
Ken Therhoff. Anyway.
Donna English also.
Oh, Donna English, okay.
But Cindy and I have been making a lot of the rounds with visiting several companies as well. So everybody loves when Cindy comes over. So the mayor or Cindy or any of us would love to come and talk about this project to anyone. But you're right, we have a lot of community engaged individuals that are very, very enthused about this project. And then there's also a book here too. Let me see, the animal book. I was just reading this, a comment that, and this is kind of interesting. So a former First Lady, Jean Carnahan, wrote a book, and it hasn't been published, but it's about a mouse that lives on Adrian's Island and goes up to the governor's mansion. And so we're kind of talking to her a little bit about that. So there's a lot of really kind of cool history and stories that I think are really going to be fun when this all kind of comes about. There's just so many connections. I know that former First Ladies, I know that also, oh gosh, I just drew a total moment of
Lori Holden.
Lori Holden.
Thank you, Lori Holden. Sorry. Yeah, Lori Holden is also very enthused about it, and Jean Carnahan, and of course Teresa Parson and Mike, and they love this whole concept. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can really broaden this whole story of Adrian's Island and make it just even beyond just us in Jefferson City. But yeah, it's awesome, and there's an opportunity for everyone to enjoy it and for everyone to get involved and engaged and share all this great stuff we've been talking about today with others.
Okay, it looks like there's no other questions on the chat that I can see. I want to thank everybody for joining today. Does somebody know how many of these virtual Friday coffees we've had? Kelsey, is this number 10?
This is number 11.
11, okay.
Yeah.
Well, when we started this, we thought it was going to be a 1 or 2 week thing, and we keep getting good comments about it. I know a lot of people have commented about the starting time of 9 o'clock. Everybody really likes that. So, I think the staff is going to continue doing these as long as there's a good message that we're going to talk about. I will give you a sneak preview on next week, on next Friday. It hasn't been totally confirmed yet, but we are talking to the Office of Administration, the Division of Facilities Management, Design and Construction. Some of you may have seen the KRCG TV story on the Capitol, the construction of the Capitol, and since the covering is coming down and whatever, but Michael Kutami and Mark Hill, Mark is the director of the Division of Facilities Management, and Michael Kutami is the project manager on the capital project. But they have agreed, pending technical issues like I know I've had today of getting them connected up to this. They're going to make a full presentation on the Capitol, what's happened with the Capitol, and a little bit of the inside baseball stuff, and that should be really exciting. Again, informally, not we'll be announcing that Monday because I think the details will be worked out today. But we're excited about having them on a virtual Friday coffee next Friday. And with that.
One last thing, Randy, I'm just
okay.
putting this in the chat. The video we shared, and I think we mentioned it, but I don't remember, bicentennialbridge.org has a lot of those photos and slides, so you can pull it up yourself and share it. So thank you all.
Absolutely. Okay, everybody, have a great weekend this weekend, and with a little luck and a lot of faith, we'll see you next Friday. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Bob Gilbert. Good presentation.
Great job, Bob. Great job.
Oh, thank you. Thanks,
Carrie,
Frank. It's good to see
Carrie,
you again.
if you're still on, thank you so much. I know she had to, she has a Southwest Missouri State, Missouri State University
Missouri State
Board of Curators meeting that she's got to get to. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Say hey to Sarah for me.
Hey. Yep. Good to see you, Eric. Take care.
Well, and here's let me close this down.